Hello everyone. Sawadika. Namaskar. Welcome you all to the Roto-Moulding Leadership Program by TechnoBiz. This program is simply an MBA class on leadership and management by having conversation with the leaders of the roto-moulding industry. Our guest today is Mr. Ravi Mehra, a well-experienced and eminent roto-moulding professional with 45 plus years of experience. Before we get into today's episode of Roto-Moulding Leadership Program, let me introduce you about the TechnoBiz and its services for the roto-moulding industry. Welcome you all to be the part of the TechnoBiz journey. Established in 2005, based in Thailand. TechnoBiz is recognized as an international resource center for industries and technologies. The services are divided into two. One is focused on professional education, another segment is on the business services. We offer global services with the trade exhibitions, training, conferences, consulting, publication, etc., etc. The business focus is into two segments mainly. One on the polymer industry, another segment is on non-polymer industry. Plastic industry is one of the key business areas of the TechnoBiz. Let's discuss about the more information on what kind of services we are offering for the roto-moulding businesses and professionals. We have a Roto-Moulding Trade Expo. We're organizing in 2023 in Bangkok next year and during the 29th to 31st March. Another one we have in the 21st and 22nd November in Sharjah. The two exhibitions we are organizing next year. The booth booking will be open very soon. There will be conference as well at this expo, and this is an in-person event. The second one I'd like to introduce to you all is the Roto-Moulding Masterclass. This is a 2-day online masterclass focusing on roto-moulding technology and practice. Mr. Martin Spencer is a resource person for this program. In this program, he discusses about principles, practical issues, design aspects, and advanced features of the roto-moulding. And this is suitable for experienced as well as entry-level roto-moulding professionals as well. The upcoming schedule is 18th to 19th October. Now the registration is open. You can visit our website knowhow-webinars.com to register for this program. Other activity we have is the Roto-Moulding Business Forum. This is an online forum focusing on the latest technical and as well as the market developments in the roto-moulding industry. The frequency of this event is 2 times a year, and the third edition will be hosting on 7th December. There will be presentations and also the discussion sessions in this forum. And we have the sponsorships opportunities also there for the interested companies to be part of this roto-moulding business forum. The other one you have is Roto-Moulding Leadership, the one we are all joining today. This is one of our very special events, simply a mini MBA class, 60 to 90 minutes in length. In this program, we are hosting various well-experienced and eminent roto-moulding business leaders to discuss about their leadership and management practices, and also lessons learned and also advice to the younger roto-moulding community. These are some of our eminent experienced roto-moulding leaders are being part of this roto-moulding leadership program. I do encourage all roto-moulding professionals to not to miss this event. It's a really good learning platform, Roto-Moulding Leadership Program. We'll be inviting many more in the near future. So please join us on regular basis in this Roto-Moulding leadership program. So other activity we have is Roto-Moulding research. This is an event focusing on the research developments related to Roto-Moulding. We are hosting our first episode on the 17th August. In this episode, Dr. Alex Richard from the Queen's University, he'll be speaking on the innovations from Roto-Moulding research at Queen's University, Belfast. I'd like to offer share the special thanks to Mr. Mark Ians for his coordination and as well as supporting this session on the Roto-Moulding research. We have also the Roto-Moulding newsletter. We are producing the weekly newsletter via LinkedIn with a focus on activities and developments. And I encourage all the Roto-Moulding companies or technology suppliers can share information to include in this newsletter. We are also offering advertisement opportunities as well for interested companies to be part of this newsletter. Other one is a marketing and branding area, which is called a Roto-Moulding Business Connect. This is basically marketing and branding service for Roto-Moulding companies to introduce and promote their business globally through TechnoBiz platforms. This is a customized program and also fee-based service for the interested companies. Let me give you some idea about subscribers. Currently, we have around 850 Roto-Moulding professionals around the world subscribed for our online programs. Out of these 850, we have around 60% from Asia and the rest are from the other parts of the world. They have access to join all these online programs and at their convenience. If they are unable to join the live session, and they have an access to record session as well. With one-time subscription, they will get the links for all the future Roto-Moulding programs. I think many of you have received the links for this program today. We do offer a sponsorship and advertisement opportunities in all our programs. They're affordable and also various types of options are available. If you're interested, you can reach out to me. We are also very active on the social media platforms to update about our activities and as well as to connect with the Roto-Moulding industries. Particularly, we are on Facebook, WhatsApp, LinkedIn, and also Twitter through our Roto-Moulding network. Our video platform is on YouTube through the TechnoBiz channel. Most of online programs are available to view on YouTube. Please check our YouTube channel to watch all our past episodes of Leadership, Business Forum, many other related to the Roto-Moulding. We're very pleased to have a strategic partnership with the Society of Asian Roto-Moulders, shortly we call it STAR, to support the Roto-Moulding industry. Through this cooperation, TechnoBiz and STAR do promote and support each other activities appropriately. We encourage all Roto-Moulders in Asia to be the member of this useful society. You can check the details of the membership at starasia.org. We're also open to explore cooperation with all other Roto-Moulding association societies as appropriately to serve the Roto-Moulding industry better. I'd like to introduce to you the various STAR upcoming events. I do encourage to reach out to the STAR team at info@starasia.org. The 19th STAR annual conference will be in New Delhi during 28 to 13 January. There is a webinar, STAR webinar on the fracture mechanics of PE and PP on the 15th July at 5 p.m. Indian time. And there is a physical event, the tabletop mini expo with a theme on the custom molding versus tanks, emerging roto opportunities in a changing scenario. So please check starasia.org, or you can also reach out to their team at info@starasia.org. Let me conclude my presentation with the TechnoBiz vision for roto-molding industry. We are focused on serving roto-molding industry with 4 pillars: engaging, building, marketing, and branding. All are very much integrated. We engage in the industry by hosting events that bring roto industry together to exchange information and explore opportunities and collaborations. Engaging with all international roto-molding association and societies as appropriate for the benefit of roto-molding fraternity. Also building skills to improve competency of the professionals to meet the current needs of the industry. And finally, marketing and branding the roto-molding companies to explore business opportunity and collaboration. I invite you all to be the part of the TechnoBiz journey. This is a brief presentation on TechnoBiz and its services. If you need more information and assistance from us, you can contact me. So let's get to our today's session, and I'd like to invite our host, Mr. Martin Spencer. He is a managing director of the Unique Roto Consulting. Let me brief you about Martin. Martin Spencer is a well-experienced roto-molding professional with 35 years experience in the roto-molding industry. Currently, he is a managing director of the Unique Roto Consulting, offering consulting for roto-molders in design, development, tooling, manufacturing, operations, and training. He was a managing director of Rototech for 22 years. He was also chairman of ORMO, affiliation of roto-molding organization during 2016 to 2018 for 2 years. He was chairman of Roto-Moulding Group of British Plastic Federation for 5 years during 2006 to 2011. It's a pleasure to have Martin as a host. Martin is also instrumental in roto-molding activities organized by TechnoBiz. We are very much thankful and grateful to Martin for his continued support and guidance to TechnoBiz. So let's welcome Mr. Martin Spencer to host today's episode of Roto-Moulding Leadership Session. Martin, it's all yours.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to our 4th leadership session. In these discussions, we look at how our subjects have entered the industry, their problems, their successes, and their thoughts for the future. We hope this will give an overall picture of the roto-moulding industry for our participants that are new to the industry, but also give insight and ideas to those already involved. Today, I'm going to be talking to Ravi Mehra, who has been a leading figure in roto-moulding in the USA and instrumental in the formation of the STAR organization and the growth of the roto-moulding industry in India. So welcome, Ravi.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. So if we could get started, just tell us a little bit of how you started in roto-moulding, you know, whether you chose a career in roto-moulding or whether you sort of fell upon roto-moulding as part of the business.
Well, I started in roto-moulding way back in the early 70s, and borrowing your words, I fell into it. I worked with a company which was in lab products, life sciences business, and roto-moulding was a very small part of their overall operations. And the chief engineer of that division was retiring, and I was deputed to listen to him for a week during lunchtime to pick up the ropes. And that was my initiation to roto-moulding in the, I think it was around 1972.
Okay, so would you like to tell us a brief history of your industry experience from then?
Well, like I said, I was with this company that was in laboratory products business, and we also made products by roto-moulding process for the laboratory market. We made various tanks and vessels and other products. And the unique thing was we made very high quality products. But the unique thing was, even in the 70s, we were making standard products in other materials, such as polypropylene, nylon, PVDF, polybutylene, of course, cross-linked polyethylene, and so on. So we were always, because we were in 3 or 4 other large plastic processes, such as injection molding, extrusion blow molding, injection blow molding, and also FRP, fiberglass spray layup operations. So we were materials-wise very knowing company. We were quite comfortable with all the various materials that we used in all the other processes, and we used them in rotational molding. In late 70s, 1978, I attended my first fall conference for ARM, Association of Rotational Molders, in Chicago. And I found it very exciting because most of the people there were entrepreneurs who had built their own companies from very small stages and growing. These were very energetic, interesting people. And it sucked me in, although roto-molding, like I said, was less than 10% of our business. I became keenly interested. I was on the board, I think around 81. I was the president in 85, 86, and then I had to serve for another term because the person behind me could not stay. He sold his business and he left. The times were very interesting because ARM was the first trade association for rotational molding in the world. The members were from all over the world. And ARM basically provided a coming together of the needs of the industry, the state of the industry, the knowledge of the industry, and the suppliers, especially material suppliers, but also mold and machine suppliers, could come to one place, get a networking interaction and information on what their customers need. And they could go back to their own companies and define the needs. And I believe in the 80s, there was the most technological, and otherwise development of this industry. And the people started to know each other around the world. They started to visit each other around the world. And that really gave a major push to this industry. When I was president, I had 2 primary goals. One was rotational molding was a black art. People developed their processes or products, and some were better than others. They were more successful than others, but nobody really knew why. It was all secret recipe, and as I call it, it was a black box science. So my first goal as the president was to start the formation of RMDC, which is Rotational Molding Development Center, and it was started at the Lowell Institute in north of Boston, and then to Akron with Professor White. And finally, later on, we actually moved our attention to Queen's University with Dr. Crawford in late 80s, early 90s. And my second aim was to make, since ARM had members from all over the world, to make it truly recognize it as, make it as a truly international organization. And we put one of the board members responsible for the international activities, and our first 2 international committee members were Eric Borsch, whom most of the roto-molders in the world know, from Germany, and the other one was Red Taylor, a guy from UK. And that's where ARM became, in its name, ARM International. You want me to continue, or you want to?
Okay, no, what I was going to say, just to move on. So, in your view of the roto-moulding processes, what are its strengths and what are its weaknesses compared with other processes?
Well, I'm a strong believer. I've now been involved passionately for the last 30, 40 years with this industry. Since my so-called retirement, I've been completely dedicated to this industry and whatever difference I could make to it. The major strengths are that it's an extremely versatile process from the design point of view. I've made during my life a lot of presentations, especially in the last 20 years, to people about what is roto-moulding and what it can do for you. And after about 35, 40 minutes of this presentation, if people ask me the question, so basically you're only limited by your imagination, that's when I know they have understood the message. So it's a very versatile process. Of course, it has been limited because technologically not so much money and development was spent in the earlier years. Although now, I think with the robotized machines and all that and smart machines, it's really coming along. But the main weakness I feel is limited thinking of the people, roto-molders, from materials point of view. The rest of the plastic industry uses all the other materials. They design products, they provide solutions, and customers pay for it, regardless of the base prices, costs of the material. And I think we are more limited by how we ourselves think that this is costly because we are all polyethylene centric. And that has been our biggest drawback. I think we need to continue to further develop the technology and the sciences of this process of this industry. But we also, which I think 80% depends upon the roto-molders to decide to use materials. We are making very sophisticated, roto-moulding, the special thing about roto-moulding is it does not make a product. It provides a solution. Majority of the roto-moulding products, when they come out of the mold, they are 80, 90% a total complete product with everything in and on it, which is not the case in most other processes. In injection molding and all that, you make components and then you assemble them. So it's a very versatile, very strong process, and I'm a strong believer. I think a lot of technological changes have come, improvements have been in molds, materials, machines, secondary operations. But my hope and wish and prayer is for us to start using many other materials which are very suitable. It's amazing how many materials can be roto-molded if you set your mind to it.
Well, I think there's quite a wide palette of materials available to molders now, but I agree with you that I think most molders are frightened of them. They're frightened to try and mold them. They're frightened to offer them to their customers because they feel that the base materials are too expensive. But their customers are used to paying those sort of prices if they want those sort of properties. So yeah, I agree with you entirely. So in your early years of processing in the 70s and 80s, what were the major problems you had to overcome to be able to use the roto-moulding process at that time?
Well, at that time, there were a lot of problems getting good molds, getting good designs. I mean, design was also a seat of the pants things. It's only later in the 80s when people like Glenn Bead and all came up with the design guidelines and things like that. But everything was a challenge. one could not go to a Martin Spencer and say, help me design a solution to this need. You had to do it yourself. Of course, the materials, even the polyethylenes, were different. They were unique. Even the powdering process was not fully understood. But like I said, that all started to change in the 80s. The machines also in those days were basically either homemade or we had McNeil machines. Akron McNeil was a rubber and tire making company that was making these machines. And but they were very basic machines with very basic temperature controllers and speed controllers and so on. And it's in the 80s and especially in the 90s when Queen's University, Roy Crawford started to really knowledgeize us about this process, that we started to understand the need for better machines, good machines, better controls, better monitoring, and the industry has come a long way.
Okay, so following on that theme, what are the major changes that you think you've seen in the industry during your career, and what business sectors that the industry is using? How has that changed in those times?
Okay, on the technology side or means side, I think design and ability to find total solutions, which is very evident, Martin, in your presentations, has come a long way. We are not just making a tank or a shape. We are building in a lot of other capabilities. Materials, I think we said a lot about. And like you said, there are a lot of materials now available where material suppliers can even hold your hand on initial selection and whys and properties and suitability as well as processing. And machines have come a long way. Even the basic biaxial machines or even rock and roll machines have all sorts of sophisticated controls and monitorings available, the inner air temperature monitoring and so on. But with the robotics and the smart machines and all, we have entered a completely new era. I think these are the machines which will allow us to truly make products from all kinds of sophisticated materials and sophisticated quality and dimensional and temperature controls. Mold making has evolved a lot. The biggest change, when I entered the industry, the big thing in those days was something called the Kelch process for casted aluminum molds, which allowed you to make all kinds of very sophisticated shapes and designs and so on, compared to a sheet metal mold. And you could make multiple molds with a lot of similarity because it's from the same cast. So that was a big deal. I don't know how many people know that both Mouse and Kelch, Mouse and Persico at one time were licensees of the Kelch process, and that's how they started into this field, the casting process. But the biggest, I think, thing that happened in there is CNC molds. This is again put us in the same league as other processes which are much larger than us, injection molding and blow molding and so on. We can machine molds to very sophisticated dimensional controls, to shapes, and which also then allows the same ability in the molding of the products. The knowledge of people about the process. We know exactly what's happening in the oven. We know why we should cool, how we should cool, why we should heat, how should we heat, what properties are affected. So I think a lot of education and know-how about the process has come. A lot of credit goes to Queens, but a lot of credit also goes to suppliers, and a lot of credit goes to people like you who, after the experience, have taken on the task. And I'm not just focusing on you, there are others too, taken on the task to help roto-molders make some really unique products, solutions, designs, and show them the way all the way to the manufacturing.
So how do you think global competition is affecting our industry and shaping our industry at the moment?
I missed that. What competition?
Global competition. So competition from around the world in our home markets and different markets.
I think global competition is perhaps one of the best things that has happened to our industry. The biggest change starting in the 2000 area, of course, there were 5 or 6 roto-molding trade associations that came up during the 80s and 90s, late 80s and 90s, primarily in Europe and Australia. But then it started to go into South Africa and so on. But starting in 2000, I was instrumental in creating the trade association in India. And this, by the way, I got back on the board in 2000. After I retired and roto-molding was my passion, I got back on the board of ARM, Association Rotational Molders. And I, along with another gentleman called Dave Mulligan, encouraged them to focus internationally. This is when ARM also became finally connected with ARMO, which is the affiliation of rotational molding organizations around the world. And we took on the task to form some subsidiaries, divisions of ARM. And the first one was in India in April of 2004. And then there was one in Poland in 2006, and also in Mexico in 2007. And all these, because in 2006, 7, 8, 2008 timeframe, ARM decided not to focus internationally again. There are enough trade associations overseas the world that can take care of themselves. So all 3 divisions became independent entities. ARMO, starting in 2009 conference in Australia, really started to become truly global, international. China, and I'm glad to say that I was instrumental there too. I was the chairman of ARMO at that time. And when the Chinese started to talk to us, I visited them in 2013 and encouraged them. So today we have 12 organizations all over the world, which are part of ARMO. And the global competition is basically, maybe the correct word is global camaraderie, because roto-molding is not so much of where I can make a product in India and send it all the way to USA, because these are generally big, bulky products. But there has been tremendous amount of networking, exchange of technologies, business ideas, forming of cooperations, joint ventures, technology tie-ups, expansion of markets for mutual benefit and profitability. I've been instrumental in some of these to connect people from different parts of the world, in US, Europe, Turkey, to India, and from India also to other places. And I think that is what the global coming together has done, and this is where the maximum growth is going to continue. Suppliers are finding it easier to come to our kind of conferences and meet the whole world of their customers and interact and get to know and show them their wares, as well as find out what else are they looking for, what are their opportunities, or what are their challenges and what are their problems. And it becomes a very, very extremely useful venue. You know, with this COVID thing, most of these have held up in the last 2-3 years. And I can see people are finally realizing how much these conferences they became used to and they found beneficial. And actually, there's almost like a great hunger, great thirst and urge to get back to them.
Yeah, I agree. Just how have you seen the industry change in the last 20 years, particularly in India? Yeah,
That's a very good question.
Yeah.
So I first time went to India in October 2000, and I had made a good contact and friendship with a gentleman in Reliance Industries. He was way up in top echelons of the management there, called Kamal Nanavati. I had met him at a K show in 1995. And I wrote to him that I'm coming to India and I'd like to know the roto-molding industry and see what I can do for it. And he was extremely helpful in the sense he immediately responded. He deputized some of his people to meet with me, to familiarize with me with the industry. There was a gentleman, Dr. Vasudev, a gentleman, young man. Anyway, so that was my initiation to the industry. I, of course, was also able to contact Reliance was primarily helping me around the Mumbai area, and in Delhi, it was Gale. And with the two of them, I was able to get together roto-molding people to come to a hotel, to a mini conference where I talked to them about the industry. And I could see there was a great interest and passion and their need to know what's happening globally and how can they become partners in that. In 2000, early 2000s, I think 95+% of the industry was making tanks. Water tank market is very, very, very big in India and still grows. A few people were making some toys and perhaps a couple other things, but that was the state of the industry. Everything was, polyethylene, 0.935, 936, 5 or 6 melt grade polyethylene, and that was the extent of the industry. And today, if you go to India and I invite everybody to come to the next conference that was just talked about end of January in India, which is just prior to the Plast India show, which is a very, very large show also in Delhi. And you'll see now in India, people are making any and all kind of products. Anything that you see around the world is being made and more. A lot of roto-molded applications have gone into the automotive industry. It's grown tremendously, especially for the fuel tanks, diesel tanks, for tractors, for off-road, for trucks, for buses, for urea tank or AdBlue tanks. But not only that, a lot of it is now going into lightweighting, especially the electrical vehicles. India is starting to make a lot of electrical vehicles for what they call the local connectivity or the last mile connectivity. And a lot of it is starting to use plastics for lightweighting. Infrastructure is another major development in India and tremendous amount of opportunity. I have made statements in the last 20 years that India in the next few years perhaps will be the largest roto-molding country in the world, because this process is extremely suitable for the Indian needs, Indian mindset, Indian entrepreneurs. You can be small and get started, and you can grow from there. You can be big and get started. and you can get into unique products. The defense industry is getting very interested in it, and things are starting to happen there. Of course, materials handling, environmental, solar panels, floating platforms. There's no end to it. And a lot of this work, Indian companies are doing their own design. They will use consultants from time to time. They are globally connected for technology with the material suppliers, with the machine suppliers, with the mold suppliers. India has a inherently, within India, very large number of both machine manufacturers and mold manufacturers suppliers, but they also source them from outside China. They have done some sourcing in Europe. So the change is tremendous. Of course, when I go there and talk to people, I show I'm not satisfied because there could be much more. But it's very, very heartening and very, very satisfying, gratifying for me to see the change that has taken place in less than 10, 20 years. I think, Martin, you know Indian market, people, industry as well as most people. I think you'll agree with me that India is basically now doing roto-moulding whatever anybody else in the world does, and sometimes more.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I've been going to India for what, 12, 15 years, something like that, and the change has been enormous. And when we first went there, the knowledge was relatively poor of the process, and most of the speakers at the Indian conferences were international people. Whereas now the knowledge in India is as good as anywhere, and you've got people in India that are prepared to give presentations and teach the rest of the industry about the experiences that they've had. So we've talked quite a bit about associations. So
let me just plug one thing here, since I did ask everybody to consider coming to the next conference, and I want you to support me, that it's perhaps one of the most exciting conferences, especially with the entertainment and the fun and festivities and color and music and all that is very good. It's generally held in very interesting places or venues. And there is global participation and attendance. So
yeah,
please
I
come.
I mean, the global networking at the Indian conferences is always excellent. It's very, very good, and you get relaxing time to go and have dinner or a few drinks with people from all over the world, and that part of it is really good. So as I was saying, both of us have been heavily involved in ARMO over the years. What do you see the role of ARMO, both in the past and going forwards, in trying to bring the global industry together?
I think ARMO has been a very, very useful, powerful entity. It's an entity which does not have individual members. The members are only the trade associations, and there are only 12 members, which are from US, Mexico, UK, France, Scandinavia, Italy, Poland, China, India, Australia, South Africa. I hope I didn't leave anybody out.
I think you got most of them.
So these are the members, and of course you and I have been on the board for a number of years now, and I think again networking and getting to know people. I'll tell you the best thing personally. I've given a lot to the roto-moulding industry, but I think I've received far, far, far more. And what have I received more? I have some of the best friends around the world. Any corner of the world, I can talk to people, I can visit people and receive their most hospitality. And of course, we can talk about things that interest us. So that has been a good. But coming back to ARMO, ARMO has brought the world together. The ARMO every 3-year conference, although we missed because of the COVID and all, and it's going to be next year in September in Poznan and Poland. Those are tremendous conferences in the sense, networking for the roto-moulding world. If you're in roto-moulding industry, You can't afford not to be there. You will meet anybody and everybody from all over the world, suppliers, molders, products, uh, uh, conversations, sharing of what's coming new, things that you'll not catch anywhere else, academia. So Armo has played a tremendous role. It basically stays uh, out of local operations or what locally the various trade associations do, but we support each other. Armo's conference, its own conference is every 3 years, but then other 2 years there's a conference in US which is called the Roto-Plas, which is, in my opinion, the largest roto-molding exhibition along with a conference, and that is every 3 years. So that's one of the years, and the third year is what we say other parts of the world, other parts being other than US and other than Europe. So India has had 2 of those, Australia has had, South Africa has had these. So it gives all parts of the world equal treatment that way. It encourages people having the opportunity and proper arrangements to be there, both for business and pleasure, and make new contacts, make new business mutually beneficial arrangements. We have an excellent board. We have very dedicated, capable people. Armo, of course, they make some money from their own conference, that is every 3 years, but that money is put back into the industry, into developing videos and developing other programs. I won't go too much into that detail, but Armo has been a very, very good creation, an entity where the world has come together on an equal basis.
What about educational initiatives like the one that TechnoBiz are trying to put together at the moment? Do you think those are going to be helpful to the industry? Do you think they're important?
I think what TechnoBiz is doing is fantastic. I had the opportunity to be at their first event, which was in Bangkok in Thailand in December of 2016. That's the first time I met Piram. And I was very impressed with the trade show that was there. Of course, you were there and you gave both a seminar as well as talk. I think I might have given a talk. But it was very professionally, very well put together. Most of the people were from around the Southeast Asian region, but they were all very inquisitive, curious, interested, and wanted to know what's happening with the industry. Of course, Piram is not only in roto-molding, he's also in the rest of the plastics industry and much, much more. But his coming into roto-molding has been a tremendous benefit, because look at you, he's bringing you and your abilities and capabilities for an easy sharing with anybody who's interested around the world now. And it is because of his activities that STAR has made this special friendly relationship to support each other in our activities. We are playing in the same part of the world. STAR on a trade association basis, he on a more technical and education basis. But on the education, I'll just like to make a couple other comments. Queen's University is the best thing that happened to roto-molding industry, and that started in early 90s. Queen's has produced some of the scholars, mostly PhDs, who went on to become real champions of this industry. Most people know names like Garth McDowell or Mark Kearns or Along Khan in Thailand, or Paul Nugent in New Zealand. You know, I miss some of the names, but they're all in my mind. So that has done. I have also, therefore, in 2018, helped to start a similar center at BITS Pilani, Goa. It's called REMSEED, which is Roto-Moulding Center for Education and Research. And starting in 2018, 2019, of course, the downcome the timing was not the best because of the COVID. Last 2-3 years, nothing could be done. But it is starting, I think, to research, and some interesting works can be done. The next presentation that was introduced by Dr. Pozzo from BITS Pilani, Goa, about fracture mechanics. I hope people will listen to it. It's a very, very interesting, very different new angle towards study of the fractures and behavior of the material, especially polyethylene, polypropylene. We need to do all that to become truly a world recognized process for not only large, cheap things, but for sophisticated products, applications, and solutions.
Okay, yeah, well, that was my next question I was going to ask you about, is why you thought the research was so important, but you've explained that to us. Obviously, our industry is being affected quite a lot at the moment by increases in gas and hydrocarbons generally, and also pushing the polymer prices up. Do you think this will affect the growth of our industry or the shape of our industry in the future?
You know, it's basically happening to everybody. It's not just to roto-molding industry. Of course, anytime prices increase, it's a challenge, and I'm glad I don't own a roto-molding business right now to have to deal with all those. But I'm not sure if it is really going to affect the industry negatively that much. I know in US, the industry is very busy, has been very busy, continues to be very busy. Most rotomolders do not have time available for new projects, or not many of them. My information from India is that they are very busy and things are really picking up. And they see great progress and great plans for their industry's growth and their business growth. And I get similar reports from other parts of the world. I'm sure you can add to it, but I don't think price increase is always a tough thing, but it's part of the game. Gas prices are higher, transportation prices are higher, container price. I think container prices perhaps is more of a deterrent in the supply chain than any of these things.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree. I mean, I think the rising fuel prices will change the look of our industry. People have got to look at alternative ways of heating, perhaps without ovens, like with the robots and the smart machines, or if they are continuing to use gas or oil for heating, then our ovens and machinery needs to become a lot more efficient. And I think that will need to happen in our industry going forward.
Let's face it, it's not only fuel prices, it's also the environment and fossil fuels and so on. So it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. We'll all be forced to change. I hate to say, we all know that our standard ovens are not very efficient in converting BTUs in the fuel we use into the product made. Its number is something around, I think Dr. Nick Henwood throws out a number around 15, 16, 17%, and maybe I'm being generous.
Yeah, I think you're being quite generous with that, actually.
Yeah.
I think
so look at the expense it is. Yeah. In other words, you're only benefiting 10 cents out of a dollar you spend into useful product.
Yeah.
Whereas I think if you go to electrically heated and robotic machines, you suddenly change the economics of fuel tremendously, maybe 3, 4, 5 times improvement.
Yeah, exactly.
Between 30 to 50% of the energy is absolutely useful energy.
Yeah.
And of course, there are many other benefits, but from the fuel point of view, and I think in most countries, and it's already, I believe, started in New Zealand and so on, governments are going to mandate not using gas and diesel and so on in the ovens.
Yeah, I'm sure that will happen at some stage around the world. Yeah. Okay, so having looked at everything you've done in the industry, what do you see as your best achievement? What do you feel most proud of as your legacy to the roto-moulding industry?
I think from the day one, joining ARM was perhaps the best thing that happened to me. Becoming active on the board and becoming the president was a great boon. And then creating divisions around the world starting in 2000s. But of course, the most of it is undeniably what I was able to, lucky and able and committed and determined to do in India, starting the Trade Association STAR. I had, of course, very strong help from the local key players who are still fully committed and active. And of course, my best friend and right-hand man there, Zaman, who has managed this show extremely well since day one. So the progress in India is the STAR. I'm also very appreciative to have received ARM's Hall of Fame nomination in 2005. Before that, I received Distinguished Service Award in 2004. So all those are really great, great, great memories. I've given a lot of my time and a lot of my passion to this industry, but I will say without any hesitation or doubt, I had received back much more than what I've given. And the best of it is most of you guys, my friends.
Yeah, that's good. So that really takes us on to what advice would you give to people entering the industry at the moment as entrepreneurs thinking of starting a roto-moulding business or with a small business that they've started recently?
I think if I was starting today and knowing what I've known, and keep in mind I mentioned, I knew and I still know practically more about injection molding, blow molding, injection blow molding than I do about roto-moulding, by the way. And knowing that with my own personal experience, I would definitely, as a young man in the 20s or 30s or even 40s, and for that matter, even in 50s, would start with a roto-moulding operation. It's extremely versatile, extremely friendly, easier to get into process, and opportunities for this process and this market, this application are tremendous around the world. It's not just to go and do what everybody else is doing, especially if you have some technical background of your own and you have a good thinking mind and a marketing mind. Find some solutions that are locally needed and do them well. One of the things I like to share is that please get into it, but learn the right things from the beginning. It's just like golf. Take a lesson and then start playing. It'll always be tough. Golf is never easy, but if you take a few lessons, you do it the right way. Similarly in roto-moulding, learn from the experts. There are a lot of people around the world like you, Martin, but many, many, many more and even suppliers who'll hold your hands, they'll teach you. Even from capital investment point of view, compared to the other industries, it's less expensive. And get into it. And another lesson I like to share with everybody is do something unique, but do it well, do it good, do it high quality. Because if you don't, if you take the easy, cheap road way out, somebody else will come and also do the same thing easily and cheaply, copy you, and both of you will be the losers. But if you do it at a quality brand name, and because you have a head start, and you have built that reputation in the whatever head start you might have, you're going to stay there forever. I give examples in India in the 50s, they used to make steel almaras. Many companies did. And there's a company called Godrej, which is a big company that made the best almaras, steel almaras. And their price was generally, believe me, double of the competition. But the Godrej name is there even today, and no other names exist today. So to last long, quality will always win everything else, and quality actually lowers your costs and makes you more competitive and allows you to have a long stay and long success and long goal. So please get in. If you want to talk to me individually, give me a call, my email, my phone. I will talk to anybody. I do that anytime. I'll guide you. I'll hold your hand. I'll advise you. I'll put you in touch with people. But Roto-Moulding is the best place for you to get started.
Okay, so we've touched on the next question a little bit during our discussion, but what are your best memories of being involved in the roto-moulding industry?
Friends around the world, and I'll tell you, I'll give a couple of examples. My wife and I made a tour to South Africa in 2013. I think it was around August. And we went to South Africa, and my industry friends, namely Wayne Weed of Pioneer Plastics, Gary Ladigan of Roto Solutions, and another Mark Latrobe, who's also making roto-molded plastic toilets around the world. Enviro is his company. The three of them not only helped me to plan a trip there, or not only helped with the bookings and the reservations, they actually, each one of them, took me around to see the country and experience the country. And there's no such thing one can even imagine. And of course, I was able to attend their conference, meet a lot of molders there. I still know a lot of them, and they know me. Those are great memories. Same thing in Mexico, same thing in Poland. I love to go there. And you know, in Europe, but I had been going to Europe all my life, even before this. That has been the best memory. And the other is to really see that the industry has come a long way. From the 80s, the days of RMDC, Roto-Moulding Development Center creation. By the way, people used to call it Ravi Mehra's Development Center, but the industry has come a long way. And where it is going is extremely heartening. I think it is still in its nascent stages, and the big upturn of the hockey curve is started, and it's a tremendous time for entrepreneurs, young and middle-aged, to consider seriously getting into this business.
Okay, so now I'd like to invite Piram to come back and join us and perhaps add one or two of his thoughts and questions. Piram, are you there?
Yes, Martin, thank you. Okay, Ravi sir, that's a So good. I learned a lot about you today. Then, before I talk to you, I guess it's a lot of learning, in this 1 hour session. I'm really happy that you're part of this, Roto-Moulding leadership program and legendary figure like you. And I appreciate the kind words about TechnoBiz and your participation in 2016.
I think what you're doing, Piram, is so important. I know it's a business for you, has to be business for you, but from where I sit, I think you're doing a tremendous service to this industry. You started in Southeast Asia, but now you're trying to grow it. And I think there is need for it around the world. And I would love to be supportive of you in ways that I can.
Appreciate that, sir. Appreciate very much. Appreciate the guidance. Let's do good for the roto-molding industry together. That's objective after all. Yeah. So I have a couple of points I wanted to talk to you along with what Martin has discussed with you. Okay, you are in the US, and of course you contribute significantly in India. I want to get in more insights into the US because you already mentioned about India quite. How is the US roto-molding industry in the sense of new investments, and also what we can learn from US roto-molders? I'm in Southeast Asia, and always you look at this US and Europe or the best managed, efficient plants. So can we give some insights about how do those guys manage their businesses and successfully, or some good practices, please? Yeah.
I think in US, first of all, the industry is doing very well. Of course, there's been some consolidations going on. And of course, new investment, of course. I mean, just yesterday, there was a news that one of the large roto-molding companies called Centro, which is very, very big in the automotive industry and heavy equipment industry, making products for them. They've just built and initiated their 11th facility. And there are many other similar examples. Another example I'll give you in US, a guy called Tom Murdaugh, who started a company called Little Tykes. I think most people know those toys, outdoor toys, big, large, roto-molded toys. He sold that company. A couple of years later, he started another company called Step 2, made it a great success. And then a couple of years later, started a third one. So in US, people see the opportunities, size the opportunities, and they go after them. They are not afraid to spend the initial necessary capital. What I see in Asian part of the world, especially India, it's not that people don't have money, but half joke I say is Indians are willing to buy gold jewelry for their wives at any price and cost, but they are very hesitant to invest in a mold or a machine of good quality and high quality. So, but in US, most businesses, they are entrepreneurial businesses, they are small businesses, they are not all big businesses, but they do participate in the trade associations and the exhibitions. They try to find out what's happening, what is changing. Even the industry leaders who are very busy people, high positions, they give their time to the trade association, being on the board and various committees. They take on serious work and assignments, and they complete them with determination and passion. The suppliers here are also, they know there's keen competition, and they have to be sharp, and they have to be supportive and helpful, and they are. So, and people also know here that they need to have cost savings, not by making the product cheaper, not by cutting the weight or making other compromises or buying non-spec material, because here you can do things wrong. If you fail, the price can be extremely high. You can be sued. But here, they will try to become more sharp and more competitive and more successful by doing things the right way. Good quality, good materials, good design. Of course, some of the people will disagree with me. There's always room for improvement. But those are the secrets here. And it's not just for roto-molding, by the way. Here, that's true for, I've worked all my life in the plastics industry. That's true for the whole industry. They do things, majority, those who are successful, those who last, they do it the right way. So if that is a change that can be brought to the other part of the world, you know, I'm in two parts of the world. I live here, but I take a lot of passionate interest in another part of the world. People are equally capable, perhaps even sometimes more capable, by the way. But if they can do things the right way, want to play golf, go and take a couple of lessons, practice. If you want to get into roto-molding or anything else, learn first. Join the associations, develop your networking, find people like Martin who can hold your hand initially, and launch yourself. I know there's going to be a speaker in this thing, which Martin is going to interview. His name is Ashish Beti of Vectus. I got to know him in late 90s. He was just a fresh new graduate from a very, very good school in India, IIT Kanpur. And he had started roto-molding business in a very, very meager way. But he had the desire and the head to understand he needs to do better, he can do better. But I don't want to take much away from that interview. That's a tremendous example of somebody who today has become globally successful, connected. And I'll leave the rest of the interview. He's still one of my best friends, my champion on the STAR activities also. And so we need people who commit. And I can tell you, Ashish will say without any hesitation that being active in STAR from day one and being its president 2-3 times, well, absolutely the right thing he did, and he benefited as much or more than he has given. So I would encourage people there to learn from these, find out what the right way is. Right way, listen, right way does not always mean you go and buy a Rolls Royce or even a BMW, but it still means know what you want, what you need, what you're going to do with it, how you're going to use it, and then decide what is the best thing.
Okay, I want to understand. More about the US a little bit, so that for audience, in this part of the world, you talked about a lot of good practices they're implementing. Of course, you rightly compared about the way Asians think, the way other Westerns think. How is automation, implementation in roto-molding industry in the US? Are they converting themselves into the fully automated or semi-automated? What is the life situation now?
No, it's quite slow. Okay. It's quite slow. The problem is when you have an old, I again like to give examples. Look at China and look at US. Or for that matter, look at many new countries. US airports are getting old. US infrastructure is getting old. Whereas China has some of the most modern airports, or India even today has moved. And this is what happened to the mold making industry. All mold making was mostly in USA by European immigrants from Germany, Switzerland, Austria, Poland, and so on. And it was made the old-fashioned way, which is there was a master mold maker who finally brought the parts together. Then came the new technology of CAD/CAM, which China grabbed with both hands in the late 90s, and they put in the CNC systems and so on, and they became the world suppliers. So where I'm going is that it is hard when you already, General Motors has a full plant built up. It has taken them 20, 25, 30 years now to make the necessary changes. And it's not been easy. They've gone through almost a bankruptcy. But when you're smaller, it's easier to do than when you're that big. So where I'm going is that, yes, there are some smart machines here and people are interested in robotic machines. And yes, there is some automation in the various plants. They use CNC routers and finishing tools. They have to minimize labor, both for its cost and its availability. And of course, automation always gives you a better, or I should say, more consistent quality. Your rejects as a. So those changes are there. People do automate things within their own plants in their own way. But changing from the old technology to the new being robotics and so on, is a gradual change in US, but it is happening. Maybe Martin knows better if it's faster in Europe, but here it's happening, but it's not common.
I think there are one or two companies that are really pushing automation, but I think you're right. The industry generally is not so much. But I think those companies that are really pushing it and are grasping the opportunities that it offers are going to be the successful ones going forwards. Because when for instance the gas supply becomes restricted for use in industry, they will already have taken those steps towards using electric rather than gas. So they'll be able to expand much more quickly at those times. So I think going forwards, we'll see a lot more. But as always, there will be the dinosaurs that don't want to change, and unfortunately, they're the ones that will probably disappear as we go forwards.
Yeah.
So,
Ravi, for that matter, I think people in that part of the world, especially starting new or growing from still a very small stage with a market potential that is tremendous, they can afford to seriously look at these. It's not a question of labor is cheap and labor is plentiful. It's a question of quality. It's a question of cost in the sense rejects and so on. So I think they can actually try and do it the right way, because industry, I believe, is already at a stage where it can justify that.
Okay, Ravi, I want to get into the
other thing I'll tell you about US. In the days that our company was #1 company in the world in its field, in its market, Nalgene. If you talk to any scientist, even in Bangkok, they'll know the word Nalgene. Our products were not the cheapest. They were generally 20, 30, 40% higher than the competition. But we were successful. We did the designs right. We did the things right. But besides that, we had very good relations with our suppliers, especially material suppliers. We did not switch around materials because, okay, it's same density, same melt index. No. To change a material for us was a major rigorous exercise to prove that it is going to give you the same or similar results. So I think some of that discipline is very important for those people who want to make a reliable quality product in the market. From my experience, that was perhaps one of the biggest strengths that we had. I went around the world to source technology, to learn technology, to buy technology, even from US. I went to K-Show starting in 1978 and went there every year. spent a whole week, just one day off in between. Very tiring. But as most of us who have been there, you never finish the show. It's so large. So learning that, and then I started to go to the Far East. I went to Hong Kong, Taiwan, Singapore, Korea, South Korea, to source molds and so on. We bought a lot of molds from Hong Kong, China, and from Taiwan. We bought a lot of molds from Portugal. That's what Portugal did. They brought in also machining centers and so on back in the late 70s, early 80s to compete against the experienced mold makers. They brought tolerances and dimensions into this. So what I'm going is, you have the advantage to take advantage of the latest in technology and start from there. Don't start from, like in India, when they first started to make cars, they took a car from UK that was already outdated. Hindustan Motors is what, and applied that for 20, 30 years. And when I used to talk to people there, they would say, well, nobody would buy more expensive cars. Look at India today. Perhaps one of the largest markets, buying anything and everything more expensive and less expensive and very high quality cars. So my reason for saying is, learn what is happening in Europe and US and go to K-Show or talk to people like who have a lot of experience, and start in your own way, small but planned, thought out, and not wasteful, not second shift or lower level, lower quality. That will give you more success or longer success.
Okay. Ravi, I want to get two more points in my discussion. One is, you are supporting a BITS Pilani, developing a research center. I think the Roto-Moulding Research Center, is it right? Can you talk about what kind of research is happening now and what kind of research is required for the roto-moulding industry?
I think roto-moulding, what's happening there, like I said, that program really got a setback because of COVID. The institute was basically closed. You couldn't even enter there. We actually wanted to buy a piece of equipment, stress crack tester, but the people there couldn't even let anybody into the campus walls. It was like, so now it is starting to open up. And what is really happening is, there's a professor, Dr. Gaonkar, who's been interested in roto-moulding since 2007. I met him in 2007. He came to our conference in Mumbai. And very, very nice, humble person, but very dedicatedly interested in this technology, in this industry. And he stayed with it. So with him, I developed good relations with the director of the institute. And in 2018, July, we launched it. So with this downturn, things have not developed the way they should have. But what is happening right now is they are connected with various people around the world. Just to name a few, they're connected with Queen's University. They're connected with Dr. Nick Henwood. They're connected with in Poznan with Marek Shostak. They're connected with the ARN Technical Committee. They're interchanging ideas. So in roto-moulding, the needs are, of course, this presentation that is going to happen next week, I believe, is on fracture mechanics. They're working with some of the companies like, RotoWorks. They have done some work with them on testing their polypropylenes for stress cracking and competitive performance in long-term stress and so on. So those are kind of things happening. I've been encouraging them to bring some polymer capabilities also, because roto-molding can always use polymer angle of modifications or improvements in materials, as well as special tailoring of special application materials. That is always going to be a great need. The students there have become very interested. Dr. Posel was a student. He's now a postgraduate. So he came out of this interest development. There are a few other young people, and there are many there because when I go there, I do give a class, a talk. And it's a 45-minute talk, but I can tell you at the end of 45 minutes, they want me to be there for another 2 hours. And a lot of them, interesting thing is they're talking like thinking entrepreneurs who are asking questions. How do I get into it? What do I do? Where should I start? It's amazing. It's very heartening to see these students who are in the second and third year of the 4 or 5 year program to be thinking like that, entrepreneurial spirit, and the seed of roto-molding has been planted in their minds and heads.
Yeah, it's a good thing that you're doing that, supporting that research center, and also it's good for the industry to have collaboration with, the BITS Pilani. It's similar like Belfast could be, So in the long run.
Belfast has gone a long way ahead and forward, and tremendous success. But yes, Pilani is also working individually with many companies, molder companies and supplier companies on various projects or investigations or testing or whatever. So that's going on. That's another big benefit. The learning is both ways. Keep in mind, whatever Queens did, they learned from the people who created them, but then they just scientifically knowledgeized and developed.
Okay, I want to address one last point with you. Let's take about India, because you're closely connected. There are successful entrepreneurs, and maybe I don't want to say fail, but they have experienced challenges to run the business profitably. I don't want to talk about good practice of successful, maybe everything going smoothly, whatever that they plan. Can you highlight, as an external consultant, what are the things are going wrong in the companies have suffering, or economically, or developing a new product, or financially? So can you talk about the weak points of the companies which are having a difficulty, so that we can pinpoint them, so that they need to look at those difficult areas, and then they cross those weak points and move into the successful or progressive company?
Well, I think I've been kind of talking about much of it. The most that comes to mind is there are many roto-molders in India. The number goes from a low of 600 to 1,000. Some people in any corner of India just have a little rock and roll thing, and they put some kind of material and get a product, if you want to call them.
Let's talk about organized. Yeah. So
yeah, we'll keep it to the organized. Now, there the problem is people enter the market by seeing their neighbor is successful and he's making water tanks. So they copy. And they copy not in a very smart, intelligent, better to do way and lower to manufacture cost way. They do it cheap equipment, cheap molds, cheap materials, cheap everything. So as a result, so that they can compete on price to the market. So what they're doing is they're destroying the margins for the competition. And it's so in the end, it's a self-defeating game. And this has happened a lot. I think it's happening less because people are learning their lessons, but they still don't fully recognize and understand and commit to that good material is the most good material and good powder is the most important starting point. A decent mold, even to make a water tank with proper design principles, is very necessary. A machine where you can, in India, my experience when I first went was nobody ever talked about how many parts they can make in a day or what their cycle times are. I mean, that did not enter their mind in cost. I mean, if I can make 20 tanks a day versus 12 tanks a day, my cost is lower. They didn't talk about that. They talk about my material cost, my material weight, how much off-spec material or even reused material I can use. You know, so what happens is, I'll tell you, Param, another example comes to my mind. I'm not going to name names. There was tremendous opportunity in India, which set the roto-molding industry back for a few years. This was in 2006, 7, 8 timeframe for underground tanks. Were basically where the drain pipes and everything from a house could come into a collection tank, and from there go to a street piping system, and then down the street to another tank. And I was involved with that project because I was consulting with Reliance, and Reliance was involved. And I attended some of the meetings where both the regulatory body people or the government people, as well as the suppliers, were there. And I tried to explain to them, I said, listen, guys, when you talk about underground tanks, it's different from overground. It's more of an engineered product that sees stresses and forces. And in a chain link, if any link is weak, the chain will break. And the link for roto-molding is to start with the design, the mold, the material, the process, and the quality control. All these. If anything is, I can tell you they basically looked at me, and I could tell by their facial expressions what they thought. Well, you come from America, we know you do those things that way, but we have our own way to do it. To cut the story short, that project was launched in a very meaningful, big way, thousands of tanks, and majority of them failed. People were sued, people were arrested, and the industry got a setback for a few years for people talking about underground tanks. But I can also tell you, even a few years later, when I visited some of them, they still tried to cut corners. And there were still a few failures. And the knowledge is there, what to do, not to do. So again, please, otherwise just get a job and get paid and run your life. Don't get into business if you cannot understand. It does not mean you have to buy a BMW, like I said. You can buy a Fiat, or you can buy a Nano, or you can buy a lower price car, but make sure you're buying what you need, what is right for you. That's my best advice to entrepreneurs and existing people. If you are in that, sometimes what I tell people is, if you're already in business, you're making some money, but you know you need to be at a higher, better place and level, then keep on milking the cow that you have, but start a separate facility, separate plant. You cannot do high quality and low quality manufacturing, not only in roto-molding, and anything, any technology, any process in the world, in the same plant with the same people. You can't tell them, you have to make this high quality and this is okay to make low quality. So start another operation with better technology, better equipment, better knowledge, better solutions, and become successful and use the money coming from your existing operation.
Can we talk one more thing? One more point is this, India is also a good source of technology. There are good machinery manufacturers and also the materials powder suppliers. Can you highlight about, what is going on the technology side? Of course, we talked about, molders, but you're actually involved with Star, and so what is your opinion on the Indian technology? And they do exporting to many countries as well. Yeah.
Well, again, I'll keep my comments towards Roto-Moulding. What has saved India and become a world class is the entry of foreign suppliers, outside India suppliers, because they have the products, they have the choice of the variety of products, they have the special compounds and additives and so on. The curse of India is it's such a huge country, huge market, that no matter what you're manufacturing, and I'm talking about 3 or 4 major polymer suppliers, it's a seller's market. Believe it or not, in India, you have to pay, many times you have to pay for the material before it is shipped to you. Okay. So these companies have not had a very strong urge to make too many good necessary changes. And the day that happens, I call these companies are trading companies. They are not what I call development and manufacturing companies. And the day that change comes, and I hope it comes because the market on the high side is increasing, and they don't make products for that. The defense applications are going to need a different thing. Infrastructure products are going to need a different thing. Many other applications that are happening, they're going to need different. And I'm hoping that is going to incentivize either them or Indian competition, because the knowledge is there, capability is there. It's only the will and the desire, and you know, polymer manufacturing is not something a small entrepreneur can say, okay, I'll start making it. But there are a lot of small, very good, high quality, successful entrepreneurs in India that are making specialty grades for use. They actually designed it themselves. And they provide good quality. So there are some very good changes at the lower levels in the polymer industry. But I like to see some good changes at the top, the main giants, the Gales and the Haldias and the OPCL and Reliance and everybody.
Okay, Ravi sir, I can continue talking, but I think he's already stretched a lot today. Thank you very much.
By the way, you have some excellent companies in SCG and PTTG and Aloncorn, very good friend. They are definitely polymer companies. In my book, they're ahead of Indian companies in what they do.
Okay, Ravi, have you any final thoughts before we bring this to a close?
I think this has been a fantastic opportunity offered by both of you. It's given me a chance to tell my Roto-Moulding story. I'm glad to be able to do it. I'm just passionate about this process. If it isn't evident, let me say it again. And I'm willing to help or talk or guide anybody, anytime. Just write to me, give me a call. I'll talk to you. It doesn't cost you anything.
Okay, well, thanks very much for your time today, Ravi. It's been an incredibly insightful discussion. So I hope that all our participants have learnt something to take away from this to help them in their business day to day. Our next leadership session will take place on the 27th of July, when I will be in conversation with Ashish Baheti. Ashish has built up a wide-ranging multi-facility plastics business, starting from rotational moulding in India. His business, Vectus, is now one of the leading companies supplying plastics, water tanks, and infrastructure products throughout India. So we look forward to welcoming you then. Piram, if you want to sum up.
Thank you very much, Martin. Thank you, Ravi sir. It's an excellent, almost 2 hours it looks like, close to. And yeah, it's a lot of insight, very helpful. So thank you very much. Martin, you keep the engaging discussion with Ravi. It's really useful. Thanks a lot, guys. So that's the end of the session today, and that is Mr. Ravi Mehra, international consultant in Roto-Moulding. I'm sure you learn a lot. A lot of valid points, insights, and suggestions, particularly to how to be successful, what not to do to be successful. And it's really useful. And thank you very much, Mr. Ravi sir. And Martin, thanks once again. I know if somebody
feel free to share my email and phone number with people if they want to. Anybody wants to connect.
Sure. Yeah. Yes. Definitely.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and thank you, Martin.
Hey guys, if you like to watch this session again or any of the past episodes, you can always go to the YouTube channel of the TechnoBiz. So check it out. And as I do, as Martin already introduced about our next episode, you can please mark on your calendar on the 27th July. There will be many more coming up. Okay, all of interesting journeys of well-experienced and eminent personalities of the Roto-Moulding business leaders. So please keep on joining. It's on 31st August from Finland. We have in September we have from an entrepreneur from Mexico. I don't want to name right now. But make sure that you participate in all our regular Roto-Moulding leadership programs. And that's, I think, Ravi has briefly mentioned about Blaze, and so this is also in October. So guys, if you missed the past episodes which we had before with Zelal, okay, it's available on YouTube, and with Bill Spenceley from Canada, and also with Gary Letchigan. So all these are available. I want each one of you spend some time on these Roto-Moulding leadership sessions, because these experienced eminent persons will give you a lot of ideas, suggestions, because they got huge experience. They burned their hands as well with bad experience in the past, so they gave you the right input for you through this Roto-Moulding leadership session. I see you in the next episode. Thank you all for joining this session today. I hope you find it useful. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Ravi. Thank you, Martin. We'll catch up again.
Thank you.